How do midwives release trauma in their body? Midwifery is inherently a fairly traumatic profession. And it's confusing because there's so much of it that's beautiful, right? When birth is normal and your clients are not mentally ill and you don't need to interface with the medical industrial complex, it's so beautiful. And that is in stark contrast to when complications necessitate communication and collaboration from a biased and angry and honestly conflict of interest backup, or when the client is choosing home birth so that they don't have to be drug tested or they don't have to be in a hospital system, or when we have a dysfunctional labor pattern because of endocrine disruptors and poisoned air and water and soil and lack of core nutrients, and the list could go on and on. And so we're living in these really difficult times, and birth is really hard, and therefore birth out of the system is really hard, and therefore midwifery is the hardest thing. So I just want to acknowledge that for right now, like, it's really hard. Birth is hard anyway, but when you are in a community-based birth, you don't have the layers of support that the system does, and that is exhausting. So what do midwives do about it? Well, number one, I could say very clearly, you need to be able to know how to say no. Not everyone is your client. And unfortunately, many of the challenging situations could be avoided if midwives just got better at boundaries, got better at saying no, got better at saying, this client is not for me, this situation is outside of my scope, this complication is brewing, I want to transfer, transport, or otherwise say no. So if you need help building those boundaries or even identifying them, I have my Boundaries for Birth Workers course on the Midwifery website, midwiferywisdom.com, and it is really meaningful to be able to explore what is okay with you and what is not, personally, professionally, legally. These are all considerations. So if you haven't done a deep dive to even identify your boundaries, I recommend that you take that course. Once you know your boundaries and you know that boundaries are an inside job, only you can cross your boundaries. You can set rules for other people, but only you can set boundaries for yourself, which means only you can cross your boundaries. And if you're continually doing that, then the work is actually self-confidence, self-esteem. You need to know that you're worth the boundaries. You're worth protecting. And I have a theory brewing I will share with you all. Teaching across the country and around the world for more than a decade now, I can say I'm pretty sure that all midwives come from trauma. I'm pretty sure. And maybe there's an exception here or there, but it's certainly the vast majority. And I think it makes sense, right? Because who else could not only survive, but thrive in the chaos that we do, the unknown, the adrenaline-soaked what if? We're all in that all the time, and that feels comfortable to us. Why would that feel comfortable unless we had already spent a significant amount of time in that adrenaline-soaked environment of unknown potential emergency, potential disaster, potential complication, well, probably abuse and neglect. So yeah, I have this theory going. I think all midwives come from trauma. And so in order to recover, you have to build your boundaries and then build your self-worth so that you know you're worth saying no. You're worth protecting. You're worth living in peace. And so the more you do of that, the more you might decide midwifery is not for me, because the craziness is no longer okay with people that are healing. And so when that happens, you're ready for level 3 of healing midwifery wounds. And level 3 is midwifery, community-based midwifery is actually unsustainable. I don't make enough money to ever get ahead. I work too much. People take me for granted. Oh, I'm not going to do this anymore. Okay, so now what am I going to do? And that's where I think we have some of the brightest minds in midwifery, building group practice, group call schedules, or moving like I have into these ancillary positions where they support in legislative efforts, political efforts. They build support resources, courses. They build those layers of support that we otherwise don't have. I know one who went to law school. I know one who went and got a master's and now is doing advocacy work. I know one who pitched her resume to her state government to help enact more midwifery legislative efforts. And these are the kind of things. I know one who is working with Elephant Circle, who's trying to change a lot of things. These are the transitions that midwives make when they actually are whole and healing themselves. And so I just want to say, big shout out to those in the healing process. If you've done enough healing work and suddenly you don't want to do it anymore, that's actually a sign of success. Don't take that the bad way. That's a good sign. It means you're not comfortable living in the level of stress and disordered thinking and disrupted lifestyle that midwifery is famous for. So I want to celebrate those people. And I also want to give a shout out to those of you who are still in the process of trying to figure out that you deserve to have boundaries, what boundaries even are, and how to enforce them. My biggest resource for that is probably Brene Brown. If you haven't yet read any of her books, pick up anyone. You will be amazed at how powerful it is. My favorite one, apropos midwifery, is probably Braving the Wilderness. And the subtitle is The Courage, or the search for belonging and the courage to stand alone. And I love that because that is the definition of what we are doing in midwifery. We are looking for each other. We are looking for belonging, but we're also developing the courage to stand alone. And what could be more midwifery than that? So someone's saying, so much struggle with boundaries. I feel that a lot of the time boundaries don't get set until burnout starts. Ooh, ding, ding, ding. You are so right. In fact, there are 3 or 4 distinct emotions that result from breaking your own boundaries. And one is burnout. That feeling of, I don't even want to go to work today. That is a sign that you have broken your own boundaries. So is guilt and resentment and overwhelm. So those are good signs that you are breaking your own boundaries. And so that means you might not have identified, oh, this is the line for me. And you'll need to go and reevaluate that. And again, I have that Boundaries for Birth Workers that can be really helpful. Very insightful. The hardest work is within yourself, but also the most rewarding. High five. Yes, my friend, you are correct. A bunch of traumatized neurodivergent people. Oh, preach, sister. These are my people. These are my people. Yes, I love it. And there's a lot of evidence. I mean, this is just going back to the trauma piece. There's a lot of evidence that links neurodiversity with trauma. And we don't know which is causative, but they definitely come in pairs. So did the trauma cause the neurodiversity, or did the neurodiversity cause the trauma? Not sure, but they definitely go together.